We're here today for an event, and the keynote speaker is Michelle Alexander. The issue is mass incarceration and how do we end it. Today, they want to comment on the issues presented by Vocal, and we can begin with Michelle Alexander.
Well, I'm here to support the efforts of those New Yorkers who are struggling against stop and frisk practices in New York City that are criminalizing our youth by the tens of thousands every year, stopping and frisking young men of color in particular, and often arresting them for crimes as minor as possession of a small amount of marijuana, arresting them even though marijuana has officially been decriminalized for decades here in New York City, arresting them nonetheless because once marijuana is in plain view, it becomes a crime. And so police arrest these young men, force them to reveal what they may have on them, arrest them, and then once they are in jail, they are saddled with criminal records that will follow them for the rest of their lives. Now, studies have shown for decades that, contrary to popular belief, people of color are no more likely to use or sell illegal drugs than whites. In fact, where differences in the data can be found, it frequently suggests that white youth are more likely to engage in illegal drug dealing than black youth, but that's not what you would guess by taking a peek inside our nation's prisons and jails. Here in New York, at Rikers Island, more than 90% of the adult male population is African American or Latino, and 95% of the juvenile population. And this is due in no small part to the sweeping of poor communities of color, stopping and frisking young men and sweeping them for minor crimes that go ignored on the other side of town. Now, there was a time when these kind of stop and frisk policies were unconstitutional, were illegal, when the police could not just walk up to anyone on the street and stop them, interrogate them, and search them without any reasonable suspicion of any criminal activity whatsoever. But the U.S. Supreme Court, caught up in the frenzy around the war on drugs, eviscerated Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable searches and seizures. And so now police may go up to anyone, anywhere, even if there's not a shred of any evidence of criminal activity or any reason to believe they have committed a crime, and stop, interrogate, and search them as long as they get quote-unquote consent. And what's consent? It's when a police officer walks up to a young kid with his one hand on his gun and says, "Son, you put your arms up so I can search you," and the young man complies. That's considered consent, and the Fourth Amendment no longer applies. But just because the U.S. Supreme Court has turned its back on poor folks of color who are subjected to these police practices doesn't mean that the people of New York City need to stand idly by. Quite to the contrary, we can insist upon laws that will prevent the police from stopping, interrogating, and searching people without any suspicion, reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. And I'm here to support that effort because it's not just happening in New York City, it's happening all over this country and helping to birth a new undercast of people defined largely by race who've been criminalized and stripped of basic rights, including the right to vote. Here in New York, parolees are denied the right to vote. We are a democracy in the United States, and we lecture other countries about the need for democracy and the need to grant voting rights to all citizens, and yet here at home we deny voting rights, the right most fundamental to any democracy, to our own citizens. And it's time for these Jim Crow-like practices to come to an end. So thank you very much for having me.
I'm Reverend Stephen Phelps. I'm the interim senior minister here at the Riverside Church. It's true that a lot of people of faith say politics and faith do not mix. They shouldn't be brought together. The Riverside Church has stood for the reason, the justice in faith, speaking out on matters of great political concern. We are thrilled to have Michelle Alexander here this weekend. Why? At a church for these very reasons. The people of all the faiths, all the great faiths across this nation can unite in understanding and frankly in reading their own texts that the scriptures have called for a time when justice shall roll down like a mighty stream. We know who said that. Martin Luther King said it from this very pulpit 40 years ago. Again and again it's been said. We are here to hold up the need for all people in this nation to have their hearts broken in sorrow for what we have done to poor men and women, especially women and men of color, for decades. And so today this church stands firmly with Michelle Alexander and with this movement for an abolition of prisons and for a new birth of justice in our country. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Gabriel Saya. I'm with the Drug Policy Alliance. We're a proud partner with voices of community advocates and leaders in trying to address New York's racist drug war. In New York City, all of us who are here know that we're facing extreme cuts. We are losing bus lines, we're losing firehouses, we're losing senior centers, we're losing libraries. Meanwhile, the mayor and NYPD are spending $75 million a year to arrest 50,000 people, most of them young men of color, for marijuana possession, largely as a result of illegal searches, largely as a result of a practice of stop and frisk that has no basis in law. What NYPD is doing is costing all of us money, but it's costing communities here a lot more. The consequences of these arrests are severe. If we're tired of our firehouses being shut down, if we're tired of losing healthcare access, if we're tired of not being able to put enough food on the dinner table, we should be asking this mayor, the one who in 2001 said he smoked it and liked it, the one who lives in the district in New York City that has the lowest number of marijuana arrests, the person who likely never gets stopped and questioned and frisked and demanded to show what his right to be on the street is. That mayor who said he smoked marijuana and liked it is the same mayor who has overseen more marijuana arrests than Koch, Dinkins, and Giuliani combined. We stand here today to say these racist arrests must stop. The mayor has got to take action, and if he won't, then the legislature must take action, and that's why we're here today, vocal. Their members, who are people from Brooklyn and all over this city, are the ones that are leading this fight, and we're proud to stand with them.
Hi, my name is Miguel Adams, and I am a leader of Vocal New York, and I'm also a member of the Riverside Church Prison Ministry. We need to end mass incarceration in America. Mass incarceration has created collateral damage, which disenfranchised people who are on parole and people who are formerly incarcerated from higher education, disenfranchise us from voting. Therefore, we are calling that the governor of New York, Cuomo, enact by executive order that 41,000 police in New York get the rights to vote. Also, we are petitioning that the harassment and the arrest going on against people of color, arrest because of marijuana possession, stop. Pretty much we're being harassed here in the street of New York every day, and hundreds are being incarcerated every day for mere possession of marijuana, and they are targeting people of color, and that needs to stop.
I was hungry, I committed a crime to eat. Why did I have to lose my right to vote as a result? I don't see how one offset the other. And that's why I'm here today. I would like to find out why, how you would lose your rights to vote over committing a crime to eat. And I know that this always has been a problem. Historically, there's always been a way to try to deprive me of my rights to vote as a black male inside this country. I'm really hoping that today, it starts so we can get to the bottom of this and find out what's going on.